Imagine a world where humans could turn Venus, our closest planetary neighbor, into a place we could live on. Right now, Venus is a scorching hot planet with thick toxic air and crushing pressure. But what if we could change all that? What if we could terraform Venus, make it more like Earth, so people could walk on its surface, breathe its air, and maybe even call it home? Let's dive into this wild idea and see what it would take, how it could happen, and why it might just blow your mind. First, let's talk about why Venus is such a mess today. It's crazy hot, about 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 475 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than your oven when you're baking pizzas. The air is mostly carbon dioxide, with clouds made of sulfuric acid that would burn your skin. The pressure on the surface is 92 times stronger than Earth's. Like being a mile underwater in the ocean, no one could survive there right now. But here's the kicker. Scientists think Venus might have been more like Earth billions of years ago, with oceans and maybe even a chance for life. Something went wrong, and it turned into the hellscape we see today. So what if we could hit rewind and fix it? The big question is, how do we even start? Terraforming Venus means tackling three huge problems: the heat, the air, and the pressure. Let's break it down step by step, because this is where things get exciting. To cool Venus down, we'd need to block some of the sunlight that's cooking it. One idea is to put giant mirrors or shades in space, floating between Venus and the sun. These wouldn't be little mirrors like in your bathroom. They'd be massive, maybe thousands of miles wide, made of super thin material. They'd reflect sunlight away, letting Venus cool off over time. It might take decades or even hundreds of years, but slowly, the temperature could drop to something more bearable, like 100 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 900. Now, while it's cooling, we'd have to deal with that thick, nasty atmosphere. There's way too much carbon dioxide, about 96 of the air, which traps heat like a giant blanket. One wild idea is to use tiny machines called nanobots to eat up the carbon dioxide and turn it into something else, like oxygen or solid carbon. Imagine billions of these little robots floating around, munching away at the air. Another plan is to bring in plants, maybe genetically engineered ones that can handle the heat and acid. Plants love carbon dioxide. They'd suck it up and spit out oxygen just like they do on Earth. But we'd need a ton of them, and they'd have to survive the crazy conditions at first. Here's a twist. Some scientists say we could crash comets or icy asteroids into Venus. These space rocks could bring water and nitrogen, two things Venus is missing. Picture this: huge chunks of ice slamming into the planet, vaporizing into steam, and eventually forming clouds. Over time, those clouds could turn into rain, filling up lakes and oceans. It'd be like watching a planet get born again, right in front of our eyes. Sure, it sounds insane, and we'd have to aim those comets just right so they don't mess things up worse, but that's the kind of big thinking we'd need. Okay, so the heat's coming down, the air's getting cleaner, and water's starting to show up. What's next? We'd need to make the pressure more like Earth's. Right now, standing on Venus would feel like a submarine crushing you. As we remove carbon dioxide and add oxygen, the pressure would naturally drop, but it'd still take a long time. One cool trick could be to build floating cities in the sky while we wait. About 30 miles up in Venus's atmosphere, the pressure and temperature are already closer to Earth's. We could live in huge balloons or airships, looking down at the surface as it transforms below us. Imagine waking up in a floating house, sipping coffee, and watching the clouds swirl over a planet you're helping to fix. Now, let's dream bigger. What would a terraformed Venus look like? Picture green valleys where acid clouds used to be, rivers flowing into sparkling oceans, maybe even forests full of weird alien-looking trees we designed ourselves. The sky might still be yellowish from leftover gases, but you could step outside without a spacesuit. The days on Venus are super long, about 243 Earth days. But we could use that to our advantage. Farmers might grow crops that love long sunlight, or we'd build giant solar panels to power whole cities. It'd be a totally new world, and humans would have made it happen. But hold up, how long would all this take? Terraforming isn't a weekend project. Cooling the planet might take 100 to 200 years with those space mirrors. Changing the air could take another few hundred years, even with nanobots or plants working overtime. Adding water and building a full ecosystem. We're talking thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands. This isn't something you or I would see finished in our lifetimes. It'd be a gift to people way in the future. Our great grandkids. Would we even have the patience to start something that huge? And here's where it gets tricky, the tech. We don't have giant space mirrors or carbon-eating nanobots yet. We'd need breakthroughs in robotics, space travel, and biology. Think about it, launching millions of tons of equipment into space, keeping it working for centuries, and not screwing it up. One mistake, like a comet hitting wrong, could ruin everything. Plus, Venus doesn't have a magnetic field like Earth's, so solar radiation might fry anything living there unless we figure out a shield. It's a puzzle with a million pieces, and we've only got a few of them so far. Let's talk money for a sec. Terraforming Venus would cost trillions of dollars, maybe hundreds of trillions. Who's paying for that? Governments. Companies. Would people on Earth be cool with spending that much when we've got problems like hunger or climate change right here? Some might say, forget Venus, fix Earth first. But others might argue, it's worth it, a backup planet in case Earth ever gets too messed up. Imagine the headlines, humanity's second home. Venus or bust. It'd be the biggest project ever, no question. Now, picture this. We pull it off. Humans are living on Venus. What's life like? At first, it'd be rough. Small colonies, lots of rules, maybe underground bases to stay safe. But over time, it could feel normal. Kids born there might think Earth's short days are weird. They'd grow up with two suns in their history books, the one in the sky and the one we left behind. And here's a crazy thought. What if Venus becomes better than Earth? Cleaner air, more space, no pollution. Could it flip the script and make Earth the backup? But there's a flip side. What if we mess with Venus and it backfires? Maybe we accidentally make it worse. Hotter, more toxic, a total disaster. Or what if aliens, yeah, I said it, show up and say, hey, that's our planet, hands off. Okay, aliens are a long shot, but you get the point. There's risk. Nature's tricky. And planets don't come with instruction manuals. We'd be gambling with something we barely understand. Let's zoom out. Why even bother with Venus? Space fans say it's about survival. Earth won't last forever. Someday the sun will expand and cook us. Having another planet keeps humanity alive. Plus, Venus is close. Just a quick trip compared to Mars or beyond. But here's a curveball. Mars gets all the hype for terraforming. It's colder, less air to fix, easier to start with. So why Venus? Maybe it's the challenge. Maybe it's because turning the toughest planet into paradise would prove humans can do anything. Think about the animals too. Could we bring Earth life to Venus? Birds flying in those thick skies, fish swimming in new oceans? Or would we make totally new creatures, built for Venus from scratch? Imagine a zoo with glowing plants and six-legged beasts roaming around. It'd be like stepping into a sci-fi movie. And speaking of movies, the views. Sunsets on Venus would be unreal, long, golden, stretching across a sky we made ourselves. Here's something to chew on. What would this do to us as people? Terraforming Venus would take teamwork, every country, every scientist, every dreamer pitching in. It could unite us like nothing else. Wars might stop when we're all focused on this insane goal. Or it could split us. Fights over who owns Venus, who gets to live there. Would it be a fresh start or just Earth's problems in a new place? Let's get weird for a minute. What if Venus fights back? Planets aren't just rocks. They've got systems like weather and volcanoes. Venus has tons of volcanoes, more than Earth. What if we cool it down and they all erupt, spewing ash and heat, undoing everything? It'd be like the planet saying, nope, I'm good as is. We'd have to outsmart nature itself, and that's a battle we don't always win. Picture the first human stepping onto a terraformed Venus. No suit, just boots on the ground, breathing air we created. They plant a flag, not for one country, but for all of us. Cameras beam it back to Earth, and billions watch, jaws dropped. That moment would change everything. It'd prove we're not just stuck on one little planet. We're builders, dreamers, explorers. Venus would be our masterpiece. So, could we do it? Maybe. The tech's not here yet. The money's a nightmare, and the risks are huge. But if we did, it'd be the wildest thing humans ever pulled off. A second Earth right next door, born from acid and fire. Next time you look up at the night sky, spot that bright dot. Venus. And imagine it green, alive, ours. Crazy. Sure. Impossible. Maybe not. What do you think? Should we try?